Good evening and Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri. I'm Fana Sheikh and you're watching AWANI tonight. Malaysia reports lowest COVID-19 cases in a year. And we take a closer look on efforts to reintegrate ex-prisoners into society. Stay tuned. On the first day of Hari Raya, Malaysia sees record low COVID-19 cases in a year with just 1,503 new infections. The Health Ministry, however, said it anticipates a surge in cases after Aidilfitri, but only those with mild symptoms. Based on the trend of COVID-19 cases in Malaysia for the past 2 months, the ministry said 99.5% of them were in categories 1 and 2 with 0 to mild symptoms. Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said that after the reopening of the country's borders on April 1st, the ministry had expected the number of cases to increase, but it has been on a decline. This, it said, shows that herd immunity was achieved via vaccination, while for those who are infected and recovered, also having natural immunity. There are 69 COVID-19 patients currently being treated in ICU with 45 needing ventilators, the lowest ICU and ventilator usage since last November. To prepare the country for any possible surge in COVID-19 cases, Dr. Nur Hisham said that a quarantine and treatment centre with a capacity of 20 beds has been opened at the Putrajaya Hospital and Tengku Ampuan Rahimah Kelang Hospital. The Sarawak government will not appeal against the decision by the Finance Ministry to not approve its application for a digital bank licence. Premier Tan Sri Abang Johari Openg said today that a second digital banking option is already in mind. Abang Johari also reassured the public that Sarawak already has its own e-wallet system, Sarawak Pay. In an effort to digitalise its economy, Sarawak had applied for the digital bank licence last year. On April 29, Bank Negara Malaysia announced 5 successful applicants for the digital bank licences as approved by the MOF. 3 out of 5 consortiums are majority owned by Malaysians, namely Boost Holdings and RHB Bank Berhad, C Limited and YTL Digital Capital Sendirian Berhad, and KAF Investment Bank Sendirian Berhad. Meanwhile, only 2 telcos, namely Telekom Malaysia and YTL Communications, have signed an agreement to own an equity stake in Digital Nasional Berhad, DNB, to roll out 5G in the country. Communications and Multimedia Minister Tan Sri Anwar Musa urged other telcos to finalise an agreement with DNB before the closing date on June 30th. He emphasised that telcos that do not meet the deadline will be left out, as the government must focus on ensuring that the 5G rollout takes place. For now, he added that those subscribed to TM and YTL will enjoy 5G in 3 areas, namely Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya and Cyberjaya, after Hari Raya Aidilfitri. On March 16, the minister said there is no issue of DNB monopoly in the country's 5G rollout, as the government will offer up to 70% of the equity stake to all telcos. Ex-prisoners face a multitude of challenges as they integrate back into society, some of the major ones being dealing with stigma and joining the workforce. In giving ex-prisoners a second chance, Ravindran Vengadasamy, chairman of Selangor Shopping Centre Entrepreneurs and Traders Association, called on companies to engage with NGOs to get ex-prisoners back into the job market.
See, basically companies, when they hire foreign workers, they face a lot of problems. It's not a smooth sailing for them also, right? So the companies must come forward and take up the same challenge to reform this ex-prisoners. So, of course, the companies can't be, they'll be focusing in their business. They can't be focusing in reforming them. So, this job is where they must leave it to us to do. Okay? Reforming them, get them ready for the job, ready for the task.
With experience as a prison counsellor of up to 12 years, Ravindran said that it is possible for ex-prisoners to integrate back into society after serving time.
Once they are out from the prison, okay, it not necessarily they are free from their addiction or whatsoever. Okay, it could reoccur. Okay, it could reoccur depending on which kind of society are they going into. So most importantly, if you ask me as a counsellor, they should go back to a halfway house. Halfway house is where they go and prepare themselves to come back to the society. Okay, there is where, but what kind of stigma, if you ask me, I'll say the environment is very important there. Environment plays a vital role in their future. Okay, once they come out, environment is most important there. So environment will determine what's going to happen, right? So that's where the halfway house system is excellently good, which we have in our country anyway. Yeah.
Ravidran said more needs to be done in increasing awareness about the issues surrounding ex-prisoners.
Participation of the commoners like us, like common riot, is very important. So for that, the awareness is important. So the support, if you ask me, government is doing enough. But the execution level is not reaching. Reason, NGOs participation, non-governmental organizations participation, and common Malaysians participation is not really there. For that, what we need to do is bring awareness. Awareness level is very less. We need to do TV programs, reach out to the schools, to the IPTA, IPTS. That's where the awareness comes. When awareness comes, automatically there is some solution to this. See, the average of 400 people coming out from prison every month. Every month. So we got 38 prisons in our country, right? So don't waste them. They are workforce, they are Malaysian, they are you and me. So give them a second chance. Let's work harder to achieve the goal. Thank you very much.
We'll continue after the break. Stay with us.
Insan yang berjaya juga insan seperti kita. Didorong keazaman demi mencapai cita-cita mereka. Super. Melengkapkan juadah anda.
Kita sering menyangka rumah kita tentunya bersih, namun debu-debu yang tersembunyi tetap ada. Dyson V12 Detect Slim dengan teknologi laser pengesan debu memerangkap zarah yang tidak boleh dilihat dengan mata kasar. Kuasa sedotan menyesuaikan diri secara automatik dan penapisan keseluruhan mesin memerangkap habuk halus, membersihkan tempat yang suka dicapai dan memberikan anda bukti saintifik. Beraya di rumah yang lebih bersih bersama Dyson. Nikmati pelan ansuran faedah 0% dari Dyson.
Menjalani Ramadan dengan suami memang dinanti. Sebab itu, Ria selalu memastikan semuanya tersedia, segar dan bebas kuman. Untuk itu, saya Febreze dahulu. Ia boleh menghapuskan bau, kuman sehingga 99.9% dan terbukti menghapuskan virus. Barulah segar dan selesa untuk semua. Ingat, kalau sayang, Febreze dahulu.
Dapatkan sekarang.
Welcome back. With just 4 days to go before the Philippines presidential election, candidates are now in the final stretch to woo voters in the last week of campaigning. Leading the race is former Senator Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
In the latest survey by Pulse Asia, Marcos Jr., son of late dictator Ferdinand Marcos, topped the poll with 56% support, while his closest rival, Leni Robredo, came in second with 23%. Human rights groups are alarmed over Marcos Jr.'s lead in the polls. In the Philippines, where young people make up a large portion of the electorate, many have no memory of the human rights abuses that took place under his father's rule. He was overthrown in an uprising in 1986. Marcos Jr.'s candidacy has been bolstered by his vice presidential running mate Sara Duterte, the daughter of outgoing President Rodrigo Duterte, who has remained popular despite his bloody crackdown on illegal drugs and dismal human rights record. Other notable presidential contenders are former boxing star Senator Manny Pacquiao and former actor and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno. 67 million registered voters will pick the next Philippine leader on May 9th.
New Zealand welcomed tourists from more than 60 countries for the first time in more than 2 years after dropping most of its remaining pandemic border restrictions. The country had some of the world's hardest curbs and just lately began to ease measures, hoping to increase tourism and ease labour shortages.
At Auckland International Airport, flights bringing in travellers began landing from early in the morning, coming in direct from places including Los Angeles, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. Some 43 flights have been scheduled to arrive or depart on Monday, carrying around 9,000 passengers. New Zealand's borders have been opened to Australians 3 weeks ago.
In the early hours of this morning, we marked another big moment in our reconnection with the world, with our borders reopening to visitors from visa waiver countries, welcoming again tourists from the USA, UK, Japan, Germany, Canada, Korea and Singapore. Pre-COVID, those travelling from visa waiver countries, including Australia, resulted in over 3 million individuals visiting New Zealand based on 2019 figures. We look forward to welcoming them back.
Before the spread of COVID-19, tourism accounted for 20% of New Zealand's foreign income and more than 5% of the overall economy. Most tourists from India, China and other non-waiver countries are still not allowed to enter New Zealand.
On to developments in Ukraine, more civilians are being evacuated from a steel plant in the southern city of Mariupol. But officials say hundreds remain trapped in the Astro steel complex, the last stronghold of resistance to the Russian invasion. A first group of evacuees was due to arrive by bus in a town northwest of Mariupol on Monday. But city officials say Russian forces had resumed shelling the plant on Sunday as soon as the buses had left. People still stuck there were running out of water, food and medicine as Russian forces continue to bombard the industrial complex. The rescue operation in Mariupol comes after weeks of failed efforts.
More than 5.5 million people have now fled Ukraine since Russia launched its invasion. According to the UN Refugee Agency, the majority have left for neighbouring Poland, which has welcomed more than 3 million people fleeing Russia's offensive. Romania has taken over 800,000 and Slovakia nearly 370,000. US First Lady Jill Biden is set to travel to the two countries, both NATO members, to meet with families who have fled the war.
This year, Muslims around the world are observing Eid al-Fitr in the shadow of a surge in global food prices exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. Against that backdrop, many are still determined to enjoy the celebrations amid easing of COVID-19 restrictions in their countries, while for others, the festivities are dampened by conflict and economic hardship. In Afghanistan, Muslims celebrated their first Eid under the new Taliban government. The Taliban sweep to power in August plunged the country into economic and humanitarian crisis. It is estimated that roughly 90% of its 38 million people are dependent on aid. Many ordinary Afghans struggle to get into a festive mood faced with economic pressures. In eastern part of Kabul, around 900 families received bags of flour and cooking oil donated by the Chinese government for Eid al-Fitr. Meanwhile, in Turkey, thousands of Muslim worshippers flocked to Hagia Sophia in Istanbul to observe Eid al-Fitr with communal prayers. Worshippers filled the 6th century building and the square outside for the dawn prayers. Nearly 2 years ago, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan converted the Hagia Sophia back to a mosque. The Byzantine-era cathedral was turned into a mosque before becoming a museum and now a mosque again. In Indonesia, millions of Muslims celebrated Eid al-Fitr in full swing on Monday after 2 years of subdued festivities due to pandemic restrictions and travel curbs. The return of the tradition of homecoming caused great excitement for people in the world's most populous Muslim majority country. In the past week, millions of Indonesians have cramped into public transport in greater numbers than ever as they return to their villages to celebrate the holidays. That is all we have for you on AWANI Tonight. I'm Fahana Sheikh, and on behalf of the AWANI Tonight team, we would like to wish you a Selamat Hari Raya, Maaf Zahir dan Batin. Thank you for watching.